The Middle East is currently witnessing a conflict of a scale not seen in many years. A direct and open war has erupted between two long-standing adversaries, Iran and Israel. What began as a shadow war, fought for decades through proxies and covert operations, has now escalated into direct military confrontations. For nearly a week, the skies over both nations have been filled with missiles and warplanes, marking a dangerous new phase in their hostile relationship. This is not a distant border skirmish. It is a full-scale air war with major cities and critical infrastructure coming under fire. The world is watching with great concern, as the potential for this conflict to expand and draw in other powers, including the United States, grows with each passing day. This essay aims to provide a clear and straightforward overview of the current situation, as of June 18, 2025. We will examine the series of attacks that initiated this war and the retaliatory strikes that have followed. The focus will be on the facts as we know them, detailing the military actions taken by both Israel and Iran. Furthermore, we will explore the profound impact this conflict is having on the civilian populations in both countries, where ordinary people are now living under the constant threat of attack. Understanding the human toll is essential to grasping the true gravity of this crisis, as families are displaced and lives are, sadly, tragically lost on both sides. Crucially, we will also look at the role of the United States. The American government, led by President Donald Trump, has taken a firm and public stance. President Trump has issued strong statements, including a demand for Iran's unconditional surrender, which has significantly raised the stakes. We will discuss these statements and what they signal about America's position. Beyond words, the U.S. military has also been making moves in the region, positioning its forces in a way that suggests a readiness to act. This involvement, both diplomatic and military, is a critical element of the unfolding story and carries immense implications for the future of the conflict. Finally, we will touch upon the debate happening within the United States itself. The question of whether America should become directly involved in another major Middle Eastern war is a subject of intense discussion among politicians, experts, and the public. There are strong arguments on both sides, with some advocating for decisive intervention to support an ally and others warning against the dangers of being drawn into a wider, more devastating war. This internal American debate reflects the complexity and the high stakes of the situation, not just for the Middle East but for global stability as a whole. The current conflict began on Friday, June 13, 2025, with a series of coordinated Israeli airstrikes across Iran. The Israeli government stated that these attacks, codenamed Operation Rising Lion, were necessary to stop the advancement of Iran's nuclear program. Israeli jets targeted key nuclear facilities, including the well-known sites at Natanz and Fordow. According to the United Nations nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the above-ground pilot enrichment plant at Natanz was destroyed in the initial wave of attacks. These strikes were not limited to nuclear sites. They also hit important military installations and command centers, aiming to cripple Iran's military capabilities from the outset of the conflict. Iran's response was swift and forceful. Within hours of the Israeli strikes, Tehran launched its own offensive, codenamed Operation True Promise 3. Iran unleashed hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones aimed at targets inside Israel. These retaliatory strikes were directed at military bases, intelligence headquarters, and other strategic locations across the country. Air raid sirens blared in major Israeli cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as the country's air defense systems worked to intercept the incoming projectiles. The Iranian government portrayed these actions as a justified response to what it called an unprovoked act of aggression by Israel, vowing to defend its sovereignty and people. The exchange of fire did not end there. In the days that have followed, the air war has continued to rage, entering its sixth day. Both sides have launched new waves of attacks against each other. On Wednesday morning, the Israeli military reported that 2 more barrages of Iranian missiles had been fired toward Israel, with explosions heard over Tel Aviv. Israel, in turn, has continued its air campaign against Iran. In a particularly bold move, an Israeli airstrike hit the headquarters of Iran's state television network in Tehran during a live broadcast. The attack plunged the studio into darkness and caused significant damage to the building, a clear message that even high-profile civilian infrastructure was not off-limits. This cycle of attack and retaliation has created a highly volatile and unpredictable situation, Each strike by one side seems to provoke an immediate and often larger response from the other. The conflict has moved beyond targeting just military or nuclear sites, and is now impacting urban centers and civilian infrastructure. The destruction of parts of the Natanz nuclear facility, confirmed by international observers, represents a major escalation. Similarly, Iran's ability to launch large-scale missile attacks that reach major Israeli cities demonstrates its significant military reach. The ongoing air war shows no signs of de-escalating, with both nations appearing determined to inflict maximum damage on the other. The devastating impact of this war is felt most deeply by the civilians in both Iran and Israel. In Iran, the toll has been particularly severe. According to official reports from Iranian officials, the Israeli airstrikes have resulted in the deaths of more than 220 civilians. This tragic figure includes at least 20 children, a heart-wrenching reminder of who suffers most in armed conflict. In addition to the fatalities, Iranian authorities have reported that over 1,000 people have been injured. Hospitals are struggling to cope with the influx of casualties, and emergency services are stretched thin as they respond to strikes in cities and residential areas. Life in Iran has been fundamentally altered. The constant threat of airstrikes has forced many families to seek shelter or evacuate their homes. The sounds of explosions and air raid sirens have become a terrifyingly normal part of daily life in many urban areas. The attack on the state TV building in Tehran brought the reality of the war directly into people's living rooms, showing that nowhere feels truly safe. The damage to infrastructure, including residential areas, has disrupted daily routines and created a climate of fear and uncertainty. For ordinary Iranians, the primary concern is no longer politics or international relations, but the immediate safety of their loved ones. In Israel, civilians are also paying a heavy price. Iran's retaliatory missile and drone attacks have caused casualties and widespread disruption. Israeli officials have reported that 24 civilians have been killed by the Iranian strikes. The number of injured is also significant, with nearly 600 people requiring medical attention. While Israel's advanced air defense systems like the Iron Dome have intercepted many incoming threats, they cannot stop everything. The sheer volume of missiles launched by Iran means that some inevitably get through, causing death, injury and damage to property in populated areas across the country. For Israeli citizens, life has been upended by the constant threat from the sky. In cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the once unfamiliar sound of air raid sirens now sends people rushing to bomb shelters. Schools have been closed in many parts of the country and public gatherings have been restricted to ensure public safety. The psychological toll of living under constant missile threat is immense, creating stress and anxiety for families throughout the nation. The conflict has shattered the sense of security for many Israelis, who now face the direct consequences of a war that has moved far beyond distant battlefields and into their own neighborhoods. The United States has stepped into this escalating conflict with very strong and direct language from its leader. President Donald Trump has made his position clear through a series of public statements and social media posts. On Tuesday, as the air war entered its sixth day, President Trump issued a stark warning to Iran. He stated that American patience was wearing thin and called for Iran's unconditional surrender. This demand was not made through quiet diplomatic channels but was broadcast for the entire world to see. It represents a significant hardening of the American stance and places immense pressure on the Iranian government to capitulate to U.S. and Israeli demands. The president's messaging has been unusually personal and direct. In a post on the Truth Social platform, he appeared to target Iran's leadership directly, writing, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding." This was followed just minutes later by a post that contained only 2 words in capital letters: unconditional surrender. Such rhetoric leaves little room for negotiation or de-escalation. It frames the conflict not as a dispute to be resolved, but as a confrontation that can only end with the total submission of one side. This approach has been praised by some as a show of strength but criticized by others as dangerously provocative. Despite the aggressive language, President Trump has also sent mixed signals about his ultimate intentions. While calling for surrender, he also stated that there was no intention to kill Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, for now. This qualifier suggests that while regime change is not the immediate public goal, it remains a possible option on the table. According to a U.S. official, President Trump recently vetoed a plan that involved a direct attempt to kill the Iranian supreme leader. This indicates that while the president's public rhetoric is fiery, there may be some lines he is not yet willing to cross, preferring to use overwhelming pressure rather than targeted assassination. The impact of these statements has been to dramatically raise the stakes of the conflict. By demanding unconditional surrender, the United States has positioned itself as a central player, not just a concerned bystander. This ultimatum effectively backs Iran into a corner, making it politically difficult for its leaders to seek a diplomatic off-ramp without appearing weak. For Israel, the strong American support provides a green light to continue its military campaign with the assurance that its most powerful ally stands firmly behind it. The world now waits to see if Iran will bend to this pressure, or if the American ultimatum will lead to an even wider and more destructive war. In concert with President Trump's strong diplomatic posture, the United States military has been making significant moves throughout the Middle East. These actions are not just for show, they are concrete preparations that signal a high state of readiness for potential direct involvement in the conflict. The Pentagon has ordered the deployment of additional troops to the region, bolstering the already substantial American military presence. These forces include specialized units capable of supporting combat operations, as well as personnel to manage logistics and intelligence gathering. The goal is to have assets in place to protect American interests and personnel, support Israel, and respond swiftly if ordered to engage Iranian forces. A key component of this military buildup is air power. The U.S. Air Force has moved additional fighter jets, bombers, and aerial refueling tankers to its bases in the Persian Gulf and the broader Middle East. Aircraft carriers, which are essentially floating military bases, have also been positioned to project power and provide a platform for launching airstrikes if necessary. These assets serve a dual purpose. First, they provide a powerful deterrent to Iran, showing the overwhelming force that could be brought to bear against it. Second, they provide direct support to Israel, sharing intelligence from satellites and surveillance drones to help identify targets and assess battle damage. The American military is also playing a crucial role in defense. U.S. forces in the region are operating advanced missile defense systems, which are designed to help protect allied nations and American bases from Iranian missile attacks. These systems, such as the Patriot and THAAD batteries, work in coordination with Israel's own air defense network. This creates a multi-layered shield intended to intercept as many incoming threats as possible. This defensive support is vital, as it helps to mitigate the impact of Iran's retaliatory strikes and saves lives, allowing Israel to sustain its own military operations with greater security. This robust military posture demonstrates that the United States is prepared for multiple scenarios. While the official stance may be to support Israel and pressure Iran into surrender, the movements of troops, ships, and aircraft indicate a readiness for direct combat. The positioning of these assets ensures that if the conflict escalates further, or if American forces or interests are targeted, the U.S. can respond with immediate and overwhelming force. It is a clear and tangible message to Iran and the world that America's involvement goes far beyond words, and that its military is ready to act on the president's orders. While the White House and the Pentagon project an image of strength and readiness, a significant and contentious debate is taking place within the United States. The question of whether America should fully commit its military to the Iran-Israel war is far from settled. On one side of the argument are those who advocate for decisive American intervention. This group, which includes many lawmakers and national security hawks, argues that the United States has a moral and strategic obligation to defend its closest ally in the Middle East, Israel. They believe that a swift and powerful American response is necessary to neutralize the threat from Iran and prevent it from developing nuclear weapons. These proponents of intervention argue that American inaction would be perceived as weakness, potentially emboldening other adversaries around the world. They contend that Iran's government is a source of instability throughout the region and that its defeat would serve long-term American interests. From their perspective, the current conflict offers an opportunity to deal a decisive blow to a hostile regime. They believe that providing full military support to Israel, and even engaging in direct combat if necessary, is the best way to ensure a favorable outcome and restore stability on terms beneficial to the United States and its allies. On the other side of the debate are those who urge caution and warn against deeper involvement. This camp includes politicians, diplomats, and citizen groups who remember the long and costly American wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. They argue that entering another major conflict in the Middle East would be a grave mistake, risking the lives of American service members and draining national resources. They fear that a war with Iran, a large and powerful country, would be far more difficult and bloody than previous conflicts, potentially destabilizing the entire region and causing a global economic crisis. These voices call for de-escalation and diplomacy, urging the administration to use its influence to broker a ceasefire rather than fuel the flames of war. They point to the high civilian casualties on both sides as evidence that more fighting will only lead to more tragedy. They are concerned that direct U.S. involvement would turn a regional conflict into a global one, potentially drawing in other powers and leading to unpredictable and catastrophic consequences. This deep division within the United States highlights the complexity of the situation and the profound weight of the decisions facing American leaders as they navigate this dangerous and unfolding crisis.